1991 Honda Civic Wagon, and today I won't be going over the quirks and features because I'm not Doug DeMuro. I don't know if you guys knew that or not. Hey, you know the wagon. You guys know the deal. This thing has been my absolute rock for a very long time. She's got a little bit of battle damage. So back around my birthday, I had a bunch of friends come over and we did some off-roading. We went to the National Forest, the Washington National Forest. The only problem was I had a few things fall apart because I kind of rushed throwing it back together. It did the climb just fine, temperature held just fine. It was a beautiful weekend that weekend, so that was all good. The only problem was the steering shaft extension that I have with the lift actually came apart. What I'm holding here is the new and improved steering shaft extension thing for the Ultimate Lift. If you can see here, see how those two stakes are right there, how this piece has been staked together? That is how it should be from the factory. All these stakes here to hold these caps in. The first rendition of the steering extension, these weren't staked. So I had to kind of rudimentarily stake them myself. And I talked to Ben about it and we knew it was a problem, but they lasted for a while. Well, going down the trail, my steering shaft is completely disconnected. My wheel just free spun, you can just spin it around. So that was not ideal, but thankfully I was going at a pretty slow speed, so it wasn't a big deal. I was able to pull off the road and put the U-joint back together, which is this U-joint just fell apart. Now, with all that being said, I have a laundry list of things to do with a wagon this year. I've decided to step away from the supercharger. You guys remember I was doing that series about supercharging. In my engineering mind and flow, I just don't think the flow is going to be adequate to do really anything besides just add a bunch of extra things to go wrong on the trail. It's what the real rigs do. I mean, you see like Toyotas and everything like that, they're not going for huge power. They're not all LS swapping. You can still run a 22R and climb a wall if you're geared correctly. That's the same thing I want to do with this. I don't want to make a huge power, make things unreliable. I just want to use what this car has and upgrade it as much as possible. That's been the format the entire time with this wagon build. There's so many things I need to fix in here. I'm going to go through and document. Like I need to clean up my power steering lines. I'm going to make a new power steering cooler because I just looped that when I was trying to do the supercharger setup and clean this all up. Probably this year I'd like to build a new header for this thing. This header, I love the way it looks, but there's so many leaks down there. It's just super annoying. I wasn't able to weld it up right. And being my very first header I ever made, I was pretty proud of it at the time. But I think it's time to build a new one. I may end up selling this one or cutting it up and actually making it proper. I haven't decided yet. The entire exhaust really needs to be redone. I've made so many exhausts for this thing and I just kind of slap them together. And I like my little Screamer loud pipe, but I'd like to build like a full L exhaust that goes out the back that's a little bit quieter, a little more trail already. I'll probably end up put like a dump valve in there. That way I can actuate it and open it up when I want to hear the loud party time sounds. But when I was on this last trip, like this V-band actually came apart and you can see the soot here where it's still leaking really bad. It's not lined up right. It was kind of hodgepodge together. I don't think the gasket in there is very good anymore. There's another V-band up there. And the thing is, I don't have any flex pipes down this entire thing. So it acts like this giant lever. And when this exhaust hanger broke, and you can see it's just zip ties right now because I had to do a trail fix. The whole thing was rocking the motor back, and that's obviously not great for the header. Good thing I had a really nice thick flange, but it just makes for a whole bunch of problems down the line. And so I want to just redesign this. I like it a lot, but I need to chop it up and just sacrifice this thing and make a whole new exhaust for it. And that'll be a video coming up pretty soon. I just got to order some pipes for it. What was funny is I was coming home from the trail and I was smelling gas really, really heavily, and I was like, I don't know, I pulled over, checked, make sure like there wasn't any O-rings leaking on the fuel rail, make sure there wasn't any fuel lines that were leaking, and there wasn't any fuel piling anywhere. But I kept smelling this heavy, heavy fuel smell, and also my AFR gauge was going crazy, and I was like, it was reading really rich and then really lean, and wasn't very consistent. And I was panicking, like I was white knuckled the whole way home. I was like, oh, this thing's gonna burst into fire. Like I had my fire extinguisher. I've got 2 fire extinguishers on board just because. And I noticed that Ryan had actually put a fuel can in the back to ride with me because he's on a motorcycle. And I told him it was fine, but I didn't realize it had been sloshing and leaking inside the car. I didn't know it was packed all in there. So that was the fuel smell I smelled the entire time. I looked into the car and my V-band had completely separated. It was just open exhaust right by where the my wideband sensor is. So that was reading just pure air every time I come off acceleration. And it was just a nightmare because I was sitting there thinking I was fixing to burst into flames the entire time. But no, it's fine. It was just that leaky exhaust and plus a gas can in the back of the car I didn't know about. So This thing just stressed me out. I was glad to get home and make sure everything was okay, but it was a headache. You see here, I got the shift extension thing out of the way. So as you can see, what I was talking about earlier is they're not staked at all. They're just pressed in and they were never staked properly. And if you look here, the difference, the silver one has these staked little marks there. There's 2 stakes there, and it holds that cap in. These have no stakes at all. What happens when they're not staked is those caps can just work their way out over time. And that's what happened on the trails. That just separated into 2 parts. And I literally just had freewheeling steering. So this new one, as you can see, I actually kind of put them side by side. Directly side by side. You can see that the green one is a little bit longer. So this new one should actually, in theory, be a little easier to install, because that one is such a pain in the ass to put together. I hate trying to get that thing in and out. So I'm going to go ahead and try to get this one put in. And as you can see, it's all staked. It's a better build quality. It's actually quite a bit lighter too. This thing's kind of a chonker. So we'll get this thing slapped in and hopefully we'll be back to steering. Oh, being such a lovely day, I couldn't rob you guys of a little bit of wagon driving. I did a little test drive around the perimeter here. And the steering feels awesome. It feels much more direct. It doesn't feel nearly as vague, and that'll happen when you don't have U-joint slop all over the place. There's no binding. It feels very good. It feels a lot better than it did, which is, I mean, not surprising since the other part was just completely falling apart and failing. But I'm going to take us on a little journey, show you guys the new little shakedown play-around spot. It's not too far away. I think it's a little bit closer than the one was in Camden. So let's go check it out and see what it looks like now. And this is the new test area. This is pretty close to the house. It's all public lands here, so it's not like I'm trespassing to go have fun. I just saw some mud over there too, which is, but there's some steep little hill climbs here that I went and played on a few nights ago, just kind of testing out, seeing what the wagon can do, and it did a lot more than I expected it to out here. Let's go play on some hills. Try to get up this hill again. Running up that hill, rolling down that hill. So you're right in my line, bud. Enzo, let's go. Move. Enzo, come. Thank you. Seatbelt buster went off. There we go. I knew I did it before. Just couldn't remember exactly how. New once I got the right bump out of here, right? Brake test. It stops on the hill. That's what I always want to worry about, is like if my brakes will completely stop me on a hill, or if it'll just let me freewheel or take off, or what'll happen. No, we are good. Enzo up the hill. Yeah, Enzo falling up the hill. Hell yeah. Wagon's a little rough on the old wrist when you're smashing back and forth that thing. Sorry. I just had to hit that right line. I knew I did it like almost effortlessly last time. It's a big old nasty hill, but we made it, Enzo. We did it, good boy. We did it, good boy. Get my spotter, obviously. That'll wrap it up for this episode. It ended up being a lot more video than I expected it to be. We did a little mobbing because I can't rob you guys of good mobbing content, especially in the new test area. It's a lot different in Camden, it's a lot steeper than Camden, so there's a lot more challenges here. And I'm really excited to kind of see what the wagon can do. It just does it all. It goes mobbing in the mud, climbs the hills, it does everything and more that I ever wanted to do. So from Enzo and I, thanks for hanging out with us. We'll see you guys real soon.